Okay, welcome back for our second hour today. We have a second panel of witnesses. We have Roman Waschuk from the Business Ombudsman in Ukraine by video conference. We have Mr. Potichny from the Canada-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce. And we have Mr. I'm going to try this, Michalchyshyn from the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. I hope I did okay on those. Wonderful. So we are going to start with Mr. Waschuk. Everyone's going to have a 5-minute opening statement. We'll have Mr. Waschuk, Mr. Potichny, and Mr. Michalchyshyn in that order. So, Mr. Waschuk, please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, I'll make my presentation in English, but I'd be more than happy to answer questions in either official language.
Ambassador of Canada, I was present at the wrap-up of negotiations under the Harper government, the signing of the original CUFTA in 2016 under the Trudeau government, so indeed a cross-party affair at the time, as well as being involved in the rollout and implementation of the agreement in 2017 to 19. And if we look back to 2017 and up until this year at the general trade balance trend lines, we can see Canadian exports first plateauing at a significant surplus versus Ukraine, then dipping and then rebounding by 2021, which is essentially the last full year before full-scale war. Ukrainian exports, which of course we count as Canadian imports, grew steadily, and that was in fact the policy intention, which was to support Ukraine, and that was backed by a trade development project implemented by the Canada-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce and the Conference Board of Canada. So by 2021, as I said, the last full year before full-scale war, trade had settled at an equilibrium of just under 250 million being shipped each way, and that's in terms of goods, with a total turnover nearing $500 million. Ukrainian exports to Canada held steady last year, despite the onset of full-scale war, but have faltered this year, especially as two key contributors, the steel industry and agriculture, have been literally hard hit by bombing, as well as the logistics constraints caused by Russia's Black Sea blockade. Canadian exports have risen sharply this year. If you look at the year-to-date data, in the much appreciated, on the Ukrainian side, form of tanks, guns, and ammunition, as well as UAV components. In fact, if you look at the statistics, 2/3 of this year's record-breaking amount of Canadian exports are, in fact, weapons systems. But things have also started changing in other areas. There's a strategic two-way trade starting in the nuclear power sector. Just in the past couple of months, Ukraine is shipping uranium ore for processing, because Ukraine has its own uranium mines, for processing by Cameco in Canada, which will in turn provide fuel-grade uranium to Canadian-owned Westinghouse for the manufacture of fuel rods that will go into Ukraine's operational nuclear power plants. This cuts Russia out of the picture and ensures value added for both Canada and Ukraine. And that, I think, answers one of the questions by one of the honorable members in the previous session. Are there ways in which Canada and Ukraine and the trade side can work together to increase Ukraine's energy independence? And this is certainly one. CUFTA modernization is also important in that it is expanding coverage to trade in services and modernizing investment protection. Trade in IT services, especially software development, has been a major part of the Canada-Ukraine economic relationship, with Canada in or near the top 10 of Ukraine's international IT export markets. And this has overall been a win-win situation for Canadian companies, with giving them access to high-level mathematical engineering skills to generate their own product. And it has resulted in, of course, product benefits to Canadians as well. So if you're using Grammarly, for example, to improve your writing output, you're relying on Ukrainian tech. Ukrainian IT companies are also now creating jobs in Canada, not only in software. Ajax Systems, Ukraine's European leader in home and business security systems, has teamed up with Inaxis Systems of Montreal, which is the biggest Canadian independent player in the security space, to provide home and company monitoring solutions across Canada. Canadian investment, now also to be better protected under the agreement in Ukraine, is modest, but it's prominent in some market segments. Fairfax Financial, known to you no doubt, is the undisputed leader in the Ukrainian insurance market, owning 3 of the top 10 companies, also expanding its presence in the agri-food sector. And perhaps counterintuitively, both of these business units are continuing to grow, because as Ukrainians moving to and from shelter in countries abroad need auto and health insurance, ensuring that market grows, and people home and abroad still need to be fed. My current day job as business ombudsman for Ukraine is monitoring and ensuring the implementation of Ukrainian legislative safeguards for business, handling complaints from individual businesses, and making systemic recommendations for improvements. And that's supported by the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and a consortium of Western countries. The imminent opening of EU accession negotiations...
I have to interrupt. You're at 5.5 minutes. I apologize, but we're going to have to move on now. And so we will move to Mr. Potichny for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as President of Canada-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce, I stand before you today to underscore the profound importance of modernizing the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, emphasizing the key changes needed to the prosperity of both nations and highlighting the critical role and place that Ukraine's post-war recovery and reconstruction, as well as its potential to engage Canadian companies in this vital endeavor. The original CAFTA established in 2017, and we have been a bit involved, and as former Ambassador Mr. Waschuk mentioned, we were part of the project QTIS, as well as had the old CAFTA, as I call it, has been a symbol of economic cooperation and partnership, but modernization of this agreement is crucial to reflect the changing dynamic of the global economy, as well as the challenges Ukraine is currently facing due to Russian full-scale invasion. I also would like to underscore that the old trade agreement had main focus in the area of tariff reduction and elimination, and it has done a great job, and most of them are now these tariffs are removed, and I think end of February, all of them will be removed. But there are important new chapters that are in this modernized free trade agreement, and a lot of things are on trade and services that have been missing before. IT has been already mentioned, and quite a few Ukrainian companies even opened offices already in Canada. Finances, non-tariff barriers, e-commerce, environmental labor standards. And I would like to just underscore that trade and services and finances are going to be very crucial in rebuilding of Ukraine. We're talking about probably the largest reconstruction project in the world. The numbers that are being thrown around now are $750 billion to perhaps even $1 trillion. It is giving a huge opportunity not to just help Ukraine, but also huge opportunities for Canadian companies to take part in that. And it's not a secret anymore, because right after signing of the modernized free trade agreement by President and Prime Minister of Canada, there was an MOU signed between a known Canadian company, Aiken, and Uker Hydro Energo, which is producer of hydro energy in Ukraine. These kind of projects are multi-billion projects, and it will happen, and they will be done much easier and faster with this modernized CAFTA. The modernization of CAFTA holds a unique potential to engage Canadian companies in the reconstruction of Ukraine. Canada has a history of providing support and assistance to Ukraine, and this is a pivotal moment to further strengthen that partnership. By modernizing the agreement, we can create incentives and opportunities for Canadian businesses to invest in Ukraine's reconstruction effort. This will only bring much needed capital to the country, but also foster technological transfers and knowledge sharing that can accelerate Ukraine's post-war recovery. In conclusion, the modernization of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement with the key changes outlined is crucial for Ukraine's post-war recovery. These changes will fortify our friendship and partnership while sending a strong signal to the world about our commitment to responsible and ethical trade and services practices. Moreover, it has the potential to engage Canadian companies in the crucial task of reconstruction in Ukraine, fostering economic revitalization and reinforcing the bond between our nations. I urge all of you to support this initiative, recognizing its vital role in Ukrainians' recovery and opportunity for Canadian companies. Thank you very much.
Potichny, and now we'll turn to Mr. Michalchyshyn for 5 minutes as well.
Thank you. So I wish my esteemed co-panelists were here in person with me, but I know we'll see each other at the Rebuild Ukraine conference in Toronto on the 21st and 22nd, and I invite all of you to join us there as well. It's my honor to be here today representing the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, which acts as the federation and the voice of Canada's Ukrainian community. Since 1940, we've been working to lead, coordinate, and represent our community and shape Canada's social, economic, and political policies. We're very grateful to all Canadians for their generous support of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people at this time as Russia wages a genocidal war on Ukraine and its people. We will never forget the kindness that Canadians have shown Ukraine, including sheltering more than 200,000 Ukrainians in Canada. Дякуємо. Russia's war against Ukraine has had devastating human costs. Tens of thousands have been killed and thousands more wounded. Millions have been displaced from their home, including coming here to Canada, which has caused the greatest humanitarian disaster in Europe since World War II. Russia's war has also had devastating economic consequences for Ukraine. Its GDP contracted by about 30% in 2022. And as you've heard today, estimates on the reconstruction costs vary, but they all involve the number billion or trillion. While destroying Ukraine's infrastructure and the homes of its people, Putin's Russia has been unable to destroy that which it hates most: an independent Ukraine and a pluralist Ukrainian nation united in its aspirations to join the European community. Just this week, the EU Commission made the historic determination that Ukraine is ready to open EU accession negotiations. The negotiation process is long and complicated, but Ukraine's path to EU membership is now irreversible. Russia's colonialist delusions have failed. It is in this context that the modernization of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement is so important, and why the UCC strongly supports the swift adoption of this modernized agreement. We believe that Ukraine's further integration with the EU, with NATO, in which Canada can be of great assistance, is the key to Ukraine's future success. This future success of Ukraine is both in our national security interest and the economic interest here for Canada and for all of our allies, including in the United States and Europe. As Canada also has a free trade agreement with the EU, the adoption and implementation of standards that apply across the board are important for Ukraine's economic development, strengthening of the markets, and trade ties, as the ambassador said, to rebuild better. Three main points that we believe are critical. First, ensuring that Export Development Canada actively supports Canadian investment in Ukraine with a full suite of products and export insurance. Canada risks being left behind if we don't join other national export credit agencies and multinational institutions, such as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the American International Development Finance Corporation, the British International Investment Company, and others that are providing some certainty to investors from their country. Second, we strongly support legislative and regulatory changes that would allow for the seizure and repurposing of Russian state assets and Russian oligarch assets currently frozen in Western banks and institutions. For example, some of you may have heard about Bill S-278 in the Senate. We encourage this committee to examine this issue and see how it would impact both trade with Ukraine and post-war reconstruction efforts. Finally, most importantly, discussions about increasing trade and economic activity must rely on the Ukrainian victory, which will be the ultimate economic and trade benefit for Canada and Ukraine. As long as Russia continues to wage war, the human cost will rise, as will the economic cost, and the cost of lost potential. So we urge all MPs in this committee and in Parliament to support greater investments in Canadian arms and armament manufacturing, to support substantial increases in military aid from Canada to Ukraine, which will lead to this Ukrainian victory. There will be in the future important opportunities for cooperation in the defense and security sectors, joint ventures, joint production, and so forth that will be developed. The reality is, even after a victory, Ukraine will have to be well armed. Canada can help in this. One day, I hope to appear before this committee where we can discuss further Canadian investment opportunities in a Ukraine that is peaceful in its internationally recognized borders and firmly anchored in the European Union as a whole free and peaceful nation. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. We will turn to the